the new teachers, the new paras, those positions is what I had down there. And then, like I said, the counselors and the 5% raise, which is year 2 of 3 of the hybrid evergreen plan for the schools.
In the school budget, they have 500,000 as year 2 of 3 of evergreen. That's what the schools have.
But it's not what you think it is. That one is just for certain positions that are lower, like custodians and positions like that. The rest of their hybrid plan was 4% raise for 3 years for the entire staff. And if you look back at last year's budget presentation, it says it right in there, that this was a hybrid plan that they had talked to Evergreen about, and they all felt that this was the best way to go forward for the schools.
Okay, well, my recollection is in the Evergreen study, there were 3 options given. And the one that would implement everything in 1 year was $7 million, which is what happened last year. The General Assembly did adjust so that you don't leave that whole money on the table. If you only make 3% over the 2 years, you get 3% in matching funds. 4% over the 2 years, you get 4%. And you can only count 3% of the 4% given in 19 to the total 5%. They did move some of the numbers up for the counselors. I think that it's only like 5 less for elementary. So, I mean, the numbers, I think they're phasing that in over 3. But if you go to the budget for our Virginia, for the General Assembly, it'll tell you what passed the Senate, what passed the House, and which ones have been signed by the governor. So it's not quite as strict as it was initially. I'm not to say that I disagree with that. I'm just saying that's what's the latest that I've seen out there. I don't know if Mary's checked with that or not.
Exactly what you're saying, Catherine, but I can tell you that the $6 million in new revenue tied to the salary increases can be accomplished by giving the 5% over 2 years. So
Right.
Giving the second year of the 4%, similar to what they did last year, this school would still receive additional $6 million.
Yes.
They do not have to give 5% this year to get that, if that's answering your question.
Well,
No, but they did not promise, but part of their evergreen solution was that 4% over the 3 years.
Last
year, this year,
They talked
next
about
year.
a hybrid. They talked about to us, they talked about the first year being 4%. I don't know that we ever got clarification what the second and third year would be, Dawn. I'm not saying that they didn't say that in other presentations, but I think our assumption was that there would be something similar, like another 4% in the second year. Not the 5% necessarily that was proposed, but a 4%. And in order to get the $6 million in state revenue, the 4%, an additional 4% would accomplish that this year.
Yeah, I
They
think
would qualify.
the biggest worry that the school system's having right now is that every county around us is given 5.
And I think the question that's been
Oh, yeah.
proposed is that, and that's true, but not everybody around you gave 4% last year. So the combination of the 2 years is what I think they probably need to look at. But I can only tell you the facts based on the way we presented it as far as getting that $6 million this year. So.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
but what they did, they relaxed it. So let's say that they weren't able to get a match and only between the 2 years, and I'm not suggesting this is what we should do, that a locality could only give 4%. They're going to be able to get a 4% from the state.
Some level of
Some level of compensation
Yes.
down to 3%. I know most localities are trying to ask for 5% because everybody around is getting them.
Right.
Or asking for that, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen. And we did give, and deservedly so,
Yes.
4% last year. So,
I don't know what.
And it
other
is
localities
only
gave
for
us.
SOQ positions. So that means standards of quality positions, which are about 60% of the positions such as teachers, guidance counselors, and not all teachers, not all guidance counselors, social workers. So when we're giving people who are working in the central office that are not instructional, I mean, they're not giving us any matching for that, or anybody that's maintenance or bus drivers and part of what we have done as a county is tried to give that to everyone. And I know some of them now are pulling back, and that's going to be to those who are certificated instructional personnel, or that's what they're suggesting, so they can pull down those dollars from the state.
The dollars are associated, you're right, with certain positions, but the proposal by the school is across the board.
Yes,
And that's the way, yeah.
yes, and that's the way they feel it should be. Across the board, everybody deserves a raise.
So this is, and forgive me for coming on the back end. So a question to the committee regarding this. On the, where is it at? On the CBRC review of the budgets, which I think is slide 2, and then I have my notes, my talking points at the bottom of there, where I speak to the overall, the CBRC did not find anything that we thought was of issue, and the CBRC recommends the county administrator's budget be adopted. And I'm asking, you know, I would like for the presentation to be short and to the point. But part of my reason for putting that in there is when you go back to the county administrator's recommended budget and you look at the budget message, you know, pages 7, 8, 9, 10, and part of 11, it speaks to the funding. The top priority is funding the Evergreen study. So I'm asking the question: would that as a talking point be sufficient for addressing the year 2 of 3 of the hybrid study for the 5%? That talking point, would that be?
Are you talking on the school side or on the
Because the,
county side? Because the county side right now has negative $300,000 going to schools.
well, I'm asking the question based on the Evergreen, based on the top priority.
Top priority of the schools or the,
It's being the schools, it
Okay.
talks about both in here. Page 8.
got mine at home.
To comply with board-adopted personnel and to ensure the competitiveness of the compensation, we determined to undertake such a study, and we invited the school superintendent to concurrently undertake a similar study. The Evergreen study produced useful information for the adjustment of our salaries to market levels. Cost prohibited us from implementing market corrections in a single year, so the Evergreen study has been implemented over 3 years. Fiscal year 2020 will be the third and final year of implementation for county staff and the second year of implementation for the school staff. So I guess I put that in there, and I guess I'm asking, under the county administrator's proposed budget, funding Evergreen is a top priority in his budget message. So if we speak to it as a talking point under CBRC review of the budgets and just touch on that, in my mind, I'm thinking, because I did take into consideration the slide that you had sent, that we will, you know, holistically, kind of in an overarching way, we'll have addressed that, and that will have come underneath of that budget message. That's,
But if that was truly a priority, the $6 million coming from the state does still require matching funds. And part of those matching funds are for mandated positions as well. 20 of those positions that we had to put off from last year to this year are mandated. And now we've got 16 more counselors that are going to have to be mandated. On top of that, if you look at their budget towards the end, it's showing that in the next few years, the schools are going to be over 1,000 seats under or over capacity. So if we don't, if the schools don't start getting these positions now, when are they?
Well,
When is it gonna get funded instead of taking 300,000 away from them?
well, go ahead.
What I would like to know, though, when we look at, because we know there was a study, and we always talk about that. We know there was a study was done. We know that the Board of Supervisors are would like to use phase 2 of the Evergreen study to give the school board their budget. In this particular slide, does this cover a delta between the FTEs that was, a delta between the FTEs here and then what the Evergreen has and what the school board, I don't know, school board, yeah.
I don't understand what you mean by
Is there a
the delta.
difference here between what you have here and what the Evergreen study says? Because you have 24 general
Okay,
education
that
and
has
14
nothing,
social worker.
those have nothing to do with the Evergreen study. The Evergreen study is only the raise. That has nothing to do with those positions. Those are needed positions by the schools.
And so these 24 and 14 is a part of that 140 FTE?
Yes.
This is the school board has mentioned.
Yes, but
And-
it's not nearly all of,
Oh, no, I know that.
Not
Yeah,
even
yeah,
close.
I know the list, but
these are just the ones that would affect the classrooms, that are really, really needed, that would affect the classroom.
because my only thing is if we begin to drill down, it's a deeper drilling mechanism, as we know, than just 28 positions. It's a bigger argument than that.
We're gonna
So
be
I
having
just think if
bigger
we're going to make a
arguments here soon.
recommendation, I think it would have to be a little bit more broader to, whereas this can be mentioned, because I understand the need, but I think to be specific would open up a can of worms. If we can mention in some general fashion, I think would be great. Because if it's a need, it's a need. That's our job to say what it is. It's not for us to say,
Well, if it's
this
a
is what
need,
they
then
have
we
to
should
do.
be specific.
Let's see, there's something wrong. Well, you're going to need more information behind this, because you're going to have to battle it. I guarantee you will have to battle it, because just like we were talking here, they're going to come a lot more forceful than that.
And that's what, and thank you, Sean, and that's, I guess, to my point, is I think we're going to need a deeper drill down. And I am hoping that the CBRC, as one of the future recommendations, because one of the things that we did not do really this year as a CBRC is review the schools. We spent time reviewing other departments, really. And so there was under the future recommendations, one of the things that I would like to see the CBRC do is review and catalog the school departments. I think that will allow for that deeper drill down, will allow for additional questions to be had. Because
I personally think we have drilled down the school budget ad nauseum. Like,
The
if we
other
don't know the school budget by now, we're never gonna know it.
I'm talking specific departments. But one of the things that we can do is, within the bylaws, is to create a minority report if we cannot come to a consensus here.
Except I am on a deadline. I am having surgery next Tuesday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I will not be available past that date.
Well, I'm going to yield back to the chairman who is running.
Who has a comment? Go ahead, Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
My only comment was to Ms. Napper about your numbers on the enlargement of the school population. Where does that come from? That comes out of the school district?
Nope, comes from the county budget.
Okay.
If somebody will lend me theirs, I'll show it to you.
That,
Thank you, sir. Page 80. I was getting there. No, it's not 80. It's in here because it scared me to death when I saw the figures for Ari Lee next door.
Mr. Bell, while we're looking, to
140.
answer your question about as far as recommending the adoption of the county administrator's budget, I agree with that. And I think, yes, the number one priority on both sides of the street is employee compensation, which with the county side, it's the proposed is 2.4% cost of living and whatever, and then they had those small longevity bumps at certain years, and
Page 100.
the evergreen. So I agree with what you said.
It's on page 100 and 101. And if you look, it says, what's that? This is from the school CIP? That's,
They're quite iffy with the planning commission too.
well, if you're looking at 13,000 new houses, I can't see it being off by much.
Well, it may be 20 years before they build them 13 houses,
Well,
13,000
not the rate they're
houses.
going.
No, I've been on this thing for 6 years, and we got less than 2% growth, period. In fact, we have a hard time meeting 2% growth.
Mary, do you know what our growth is? Because I thought I read somewhere it was 4%.
In our projection, we're looking at 10 years before we think about another school. That's what we've been told in the planning commission.
Yeah.
And it's going to be real spooky without the proffer system that we've had in force.
Yeah, I agree with that, too. Ms. Shelley, can I ask a question? Since you're here? About the hybrid evergreen? I hope you can. Last year, didn't Dr. Baker present the hybrid evergreen study and said it'd be 4% for that year, this year, and next year?
Yes,
And-
3 years of 4%.
For the whole entire staff? Plus some extra for other positions?
There was some extra to bring and I don't know I don't remember the terminology, but
Up to minimum?
I don't think it was minimum, but there were some
Yes.
terminology that there's extra, there would be, like, even with the 4% last year, there were still there were still some groups that needed another boost because they were not at that point that they were supposed to be.
And that group is the one that's at 522,000.
That's another group, or that group, I don't remember.
Right.
That is at the $500,000 for another group, more evergreen. But the evergreen, putting the 4% across the board for everyone was, because remember last year when we started, it was 2 and then 4 for teachers. And then we increased it to 4 for everyone. But, so I'm not sure, I don't remember if the 4 was for everyone or if the 4 was for teachers. But it was definitely, it did end up being everyone. But we definitely had in the proposal, in our long-range forecast, definitely 4% for the next 3 years, or like starting last year and then 2 more years. So we definitely had that. And it was mentioned to the supervisors, it was mentioned in our presentation, it was out there.
That's how I remembered it. Thank you. I think so, yeah. That's how I remember it.
And there's a question about that too, because we have when you do a market study and your salaries are adjusted with a market scale, you have to ensure that everybody's paid at least the minimum. So we had some bring to minimums in the first year too, So our first year costs were a little bit higher than the second year because we had already gotten those people to minimum. The school's spring to minimum went up this year, so we have a question to them about that too, because that doesn't make sense to us. If you brought everybody to minimum the first year, the second year should be a little bit less. So there may be something combined in that, Dawn, that I'm not aware of, but I think that's the way it was presented. So we have a question about that too, so.
Mr. Taylor, I have a question for you. Oh, come on up so we can see you.
Only if he's ready to answer questions there, Captain.
Right, right.
Yes.
He doesn't.
Mr. Taylor, when the budget was passed for last year, for FY 2019, did that include any promises for the future, or was that just for 2019?
That was just 2019.
So the Board of Supervisors, by giving the allocations that they did to the various departments, that didn't include any promises for 2020. And then subsequently, the school board, because when they came to the Board of Supervisors, they were 4% for teachers and 2% for everyone else. But they moved, they were able to end up, after their allocation was approved, to give 4% to everyone but administrators. That doesn't commit that department from having to commit to, when they approved their budget, was that for 1 year or was that for 3 years?
When the Board of Supervisors approved the budget last year, that was for FY19 only.
Only.
Not just as to the schools, but to all of the objects of the board's
Okay.
appropriations. Everybody.
Okay. And we legally cannot be promising things, and we could have another 9/11 or a sniper or something. We can't promise stuff to come in 2021.
Right, we can
We can
project,
hope.
forecast, and hope, but no.
Right, okay. Well, that's what 2019 was 2019, regardless of what the schools wanted to do.
Yet Dr. Trampy has mentioned a few times that they had promised to do the Evergreen study this year during this budget season. That wasn't the intention of the schools. The Evergreen was the 4% plus that 522.
I'm going to interject here. You done with Mr. Taylor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Taylor, and thank you for coming to see us tonight.
I just don't want us to get caught in a rabbit hole. Today is not the day for a rabbit hole, and you guys know how I am about that. But great questions. I appreciate that, but I do want us to really get through the brief. Everybody got to see this particular slide that Dawn presented. I don't know how to attack that without allowing it to be a huge battle that I think we'll end up having to fight that we should not have to fight. And it's going to be fought that day anyway. Because
Yes.
the school board, they're briefing anyway. And I know there's got to be some questions on that many of FTEs, and I know that's going to be a concern, and we know they're going to question it.
And that you can get rid of, but leave in the matching funds. Because if we're supposed to find economies, and this is money that's going to be left on the table, the 20 positions that are mandated and half of that is paid for, the counselors that are mandated and half of that's going to be paid for, put it in there that don't leave any state funds on the table. These are the things that the schools will get with matching funds. We feel we should not be leaving state funds on the table because
Does the
we've
board-
done it before.
Does the board understand that statement?
Yes, I think I do. But these matching funds, what are we talking about? The state's going to give us, government's going to give us some funds, and we're going to match funds to fill these positions.
So let's say,
So what happens the following year? We pick up all of that?
well, same thing with the firefighters that we get grants for. We pick it all up the next year, yeah. But we don't have a choice. Mandated means either way, we have to do it, but the state's at least given us half the money. And no, I believe the state will continue to give us that money over, we will always get that money,
Really?
yes. With the
okay.
state, they
The
will continue to give that.
4.6 doesn't have anything to do with new positions. It has to do with the raises.
The
The matching
4.6,
state
yes.
funds only has to do with raises.
Yes, but there's also 20 positions that were from last year that they had us put off to this year that will have matching funds with it, and the counseling positions. will
Dr.
also
Baker
have
got
matching
all
funds.
60 positions he requested last year. It was 60, 30, and 30. He got all 60 positions.
So it was 60, 30, 30, so 30 more this year,
Right, and I think that's what Mr. Trampy brought up.
right?
So
And
those
20 of those
20
positions are mandated.
Well, that's going to be up to the school board to do.
Well, yeah, but they can't without, I mean, they have to. They've got no choice. It's got to be done.
Well, that's,
The
up-
counseling positions, which are 16 more, also are mandated now. That
No,
did
they're not
pass the
20 new
General
positions.
Assembly. It did. It passed the General Assembly.
I'm interject again.
So those type positions that come with matching funds, I think we should leave in
And
there.
I get that, but once again, I still think that's going to be discussed, and the numbers will be balanced out between the two boards. It would be different if this was something that's unknown. That's the point I'm making. And remember, all we're given is our yearly report. When I don't think we would be bringing up something they would go, really? I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I'm just saying we have to be careful in how we.
Then just put that we suggest that no matching funds, no state funds be left on the table, because it's happened before.
I mean, I'm okay with general comments. That's my point. If we can make them open in general, because we do supposed to make suggestions. It's okay for us to make suggestions. I just don't want us to put ourselves, in a box.
We have left
So,
matching funds sitting on the table because they did not want to provide the
I
money
mean,
for
I'm
raises.
okay with the general statement. If we can come up with the right statement, me, Sean, I'm okay with that. I'll put my 2 cents out there. I just think it needs to make sure that it's written right. And if we do that, I think, because we can say, we feel that if the funds will be matched, then we suggest that the board
just
consider it.
Just
Consider it.
remember, there is none of that extra kind of undesignated revenue this year like we've had in the past year. Maybe they had 3 million or whatever that they could go here or there. So whatever you're asking for does require a tax increase. So, and that's fine, but just keep that in mind, that it does. And
What about the, what was it, $22 million in excess revenue that was going to be coming in this year?
no idea.
It's either 12 or 22 million on the county side, I thought, that was increasing every other, 41 out of 60 departments. Is there any way that the county could actually scale back, like the schools have always done?
But once again, like I said, that's putting us in a position to battle the Board of Supervisors to make a decision on it, whether to have a tax increase or not, or to pull funds from the left side. Today is not the day to fight that particular battle. If we're going to suggest something like that, and if it's true that it's going to increase taxes, I'm just saying from the knowledge that's going in my head, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room here. If that's true, then I would not agree to put that in there, because that's the last thing I want to do is to be on a board that talks about budget, and first thing come out of our mouth is to say I want to increase taxpayers' dollars, and I'm a taxpayer, so I say no. But
From what I understand, we wouldn't need to increase taxes. The money's there.
it's only there if they use that slot for that particular pot of money, and I'm pretty sure that's how that would work. So we can table this till the end and see if we can chew on this a little bit more. But right now, I don't see us getting there from here. And I open up to the floor. I mean, it's not just between me, Don, and Kevin. Anybody else agree, disagree, or move forward?
Can I just, I think what you're looking at, I'm listening to all this, I think what you're looking at here is to, because all Greg was looking at is the second bullet point on slide 2, right? Right, is that correct?
Well, no, he's using it as an example.
Okay. Maybe to say that we're recommending, at a minimum, the CBRC is recommending at a minimum that we adopt the county administrator's budget at a minimum. However, there are things that have been brought to our attention that are mandated that may have matching funds that need to be considered for funding. Do you see what I'm saying? We're saying at a minimum, we support this, but we think that things that have matching,
What those are.
well, that it may not be just schools. I don't know what the general county government may have some things that,
I can't support it, though. I can't. I cannot support it when the schools have been cut and cut and cut, and more money was needed, and we knew that for mandated positions and the 4% raise that knew it was coming this year, and then it's $300,000 less budgeted for them. I'm sorry, I can't.
And I respect that, but we are a board, and we all have our passions for different things, and that's why I put it out to the board. It's for all of us to agree on what we want to put across to the
To a certain
Board of
degree.
Right.
To a certain degree.
Right. So
It's
I don't, go ahead.
we are still able, if we cannot come to a consensus on anything in this presentation, to have a minority report. And I know you said that you would not be here, but I do not want to discourage or minimize your feelings or your voice about this. So if we cannot come to a consensus, that's fine. We don't have to. I mean, that's just a committee. You're not going to agree 100% on everything. You can write the minority report, and again, I apologize for you not being here, and I hope everything goes well with your surgery. I sincerely mean that. And I don't have a problem presenting your minority report to the board on your behalf. I think because we can stay here all night and debate everything, and hopefully we don't have, my hope isn't that we have a bunch of minority reports and no actual presentation. Can you confirm, Mary, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I just want to confirm that for a minority report, if we have one, we have to have 2 members for the minority report? And I'm not saying that you're wrong,
It's in the
Catherine.
bylaws. I don't know, I read it today, though, I will tell you that. It's,
Says in cases where 2 or more members disagree with the report of the majority, a minority report may be included as an addendum to the final report. And the other thing that it's clear about, too, is that to Dawn's, I'm still not following, Dawn, some of your numbers, but I'm assuming from the comments you made, if there was money on the general fund side, why didn't we do less on our side and more on your side, so to speak? And so in order to do that, because we really aren't adding a lot of new things, we're basically doing our compensation study and adding some social service positions. But in order to do that, we would have to probably eliminate programs on our side, which someone certainly can propose, but according to the bylaws, if you make a proposal to eliminate a function or to reduce something on our side, then you should also be able to provide impacts in your report of what impact it's going to have on the citizens. So, I mean, in the end, it's all about decisions, and the county administrator's budget, as I explained to you at the last time, as far as what we were proposing this year, we knew, based on our calculation, that the schools were going to be due $6 million, and we knew $6 million would cover the 4% based on the information last year. We knew it was relatively close. So we gave the additional money for the debt service. So that's how those numbers came about. So
Did you know it was going to require matching funds?
what was going to require matching funds?
The $6 million from the state?
Yeah, so, and we fund well more than, the local transfer that we send to the schools is well above any required levels. So we meet any requirements on that type of level from just the transfer that we do now. So that's not an issue, as far as the 6 million. If you give them that 4% increase, you'll get the 6 million from the state. Now, the positions you're talking about, I'm not familiar with, Dawn. I don't know the details on that, as far as each type of position. So if there are matching funds, I mean, your comment earlier about giving up on matching funds, we give up on matching funds sometimes. Just because you have a match to it doesn't mean you have funding on your side to cover the match. So sometimes you just have to decide whether it's necessary or not. Now, if it's a mandated position, it's a mandated position. I mean, that's a different story. But without knowing the details on these, I mean, we have grant opportunities that we don't take sometimes because we don't have the matching funds for it. So that's not unheard of on either side to do it. Sometimes it's about making a decision based within that pie that we have that is made up of the current tax rate. So I don't know, to answer your question, if you are going, or to a point to be made, if you're going to say that we need to match the local share of the positions, I think it would be good to quantify what that is, because I have no idea what those dollars are, so.
And is there a mandate for you all to put in a certain amount of money into the reserve fund?
There's not a mandate, but we have a policy. Our policy calls to have certain levels of reserves, and those reserves are there in case there are issues on the county or school side. It's based on a percentage of both budgets, because we do fund, more than half of money we get goes to the schools. And that is half of what you get.
Actually, it's 48%.
Nah, and that's a little bit more than that, of undesignated. And so you have to be careful, because we get some things that come to us that we cannot share, that they are specific for social services, they're specific for the sheriff. We couldn't share them if we wanted. So
Right.
of the piece that we do share, I think 62% or 60% goes to the schools. There's a chart in here in the budget document that clarifies that.
It used to be over 60% of undesignated funds went to the schools. It's
It
down
might-
to 48.
I don't think it's 48, but it might be something, hold on. These two documents get me every time. I know that it's in this document here. Let me get my fingers to work here.
And you include,
56% of what of undesignated revenue, over 56% goes to the schools.
are you including the money that the schools are getting from state and federal? Because I noticed
No,
all
that's
that.
local, that's of the local tax money that we get in that's undesignated. This is on page 267 of the big document. When we look at the undesignated revenues, things, we get, like I said, we get money in tens of millions for social services, we get money that we cannot share for anything, and we have to use it for that purpose. When we pull all those pieces out and just give you those that are undesignated, the schools gets 56% of undesignated revenues. And in the back of this section, I think we have a document here that tells you as far as, because there are matches, you're right about that are required. So let me get my hands on this document. I apologize for not. Yes, see, on page 78 of the document that you all got, it tells you here what is our required local effort, what's our required local match, what's required for the federal, what's the debt service, which is totally 100% local funded. The state give us nothing for debt service. So every time there's a school project that we have to borrow money for, the county pays the cost of that, principal and interest. And then the last additional, we give an additional 12 million, almost 13 million above all the requirements. Is proposed in 20. So we more than meet any requirements as far
Looks
as
like
local
that
matches.
went down over $1 million.
Yeah, it depends, because it depends on the requirements that are happening that year. That's always going to be the case. I mean, debt service went up almost $1,800,000, so, and that's 100% locally funded option.
Now,
We-
debt
we more
service
than-
is what the voters vote on, correct?
Debt service is the principal and interest that we pay when we borrow money to build a project that we don't have cash for, which is, right now, we're borrowing money for the schools every year for school buses, for technology, and for maintenance of your buildings. We haven't borrowed, and we borrowed recently for the renovations at Cortland, and I believe there's some renovations to Spotsy Middle that are coming up in the next year. We haven't borrowed for a school for a long time, but once we begin to borrow for schools, we will be paying the principal and interest on those.
Yeah, the bond referendums. Yeah.
Well, the bond referendum is simply the voters saying it's okay to borrow that if you need to, okay? If you don't have cash for a project, and you have to borrow it because you have to do a project, then the cheapest way to borrow money is with a GO bond, because we have a really good rating. It's the cheapest way to do it. But we can't do that without asking the citizens if it's okay. So we have a bond referendum to ask them if it's okay. And the last bond referendum, we had school projects, public safety projects, transportation projects, and we have some general projects. And the general projects failed, even though they were solid waste projects for our landfills that have to be done. We're mandated to do them. So the citizens said you can't borrow that money. That means we have to pay cash for it. So that we do every year, transfer cash to our CIP, because it is just wise not to borrow too much money. And so we would use that cash for that purpose because we have no other choice. We have to keep the landfill up, we have to meet the DEQ requirements, and we don't have the authority to borrow for it from a bond, so. And there are other pieces of to Richard's point, proffers. Years ago, we collected proffers. We have some proffer revenue that we would attach to a project if we had any available. To do that, there are other sources of revenue for the capital projects, but cash, bonds, proffers. There are some of our utility projects that we work with the city on, because we actually sell some water to the city, so sometimes they pay a portion. There's other sources of revenue in the CIP, and it truly is, you've heard me say this before, it's truly like a puzzle. Once Bonnie gets all the pieces of what needs to be done, she has to pick all the sources that she has available and figure out how to do it within the policies we've set up, because we limit how much debt we will issue, and how much debt service we'll pay to our expenditures. Just like you would limit how much money you'd put on a credit card. It's the same philosophy.
Right, and that makes sense, but the schools keep needing more and more money for a reason. We've got needs that are not being met because we're either told, again, cut back. There's nothing left to cut. I mean, my school had a leak in it the other day. We get there and there's water running down the hallway of the cafeteria. And, we have ELL kids coming in left and right, and they're not getting the services they require. We're just getting more and more higher costing students and not able to, we're mandated to meet their needs. And so other children are now not getting the services they need.
And I can tell you, all I can tell you is from my side, Dawn, we've cut and cut and cut too. We are, for those of you that work on the county side, can attest to what we go through every year. That's been the theme, to try to keep things as low as possible. On the capital maintenance side, the schools, like I said, they have a lot of buildings, but in there's $11.5 million just to maintain the buildings. It's the situations like you're talking about for Robert E. Lee and whatever, those things happen. When you're running, 17 elementary, 7 middle, 30 buildings, you're gonna have capital needs, so.
Well, like our bus drivers and our teachers and everything, when they can't pay the bills, they go out and get another job.
I'd want to, and I got to interject, because I appreciate the comments, I really do, but I don't want to be here to 10 o'clock. I appreciate the comments, Don, I really do appreciate the concern, but we really need to get through this brief, because it has to be brief, and we're going to have to push forward to get that. I understand that the bylaws, I'll come to you, that the bylaws said that we need to have 2 that disagree, and right now we don't have 2 that disagree, we just have 1 that has a concern, so we don't meet that criteria. Go ahead.
So again, I think phrasing it in a way that speaks to what Dawn is talking about, but does not pigeonhole us. So what I said earlier, we as the CBRC recommend at a minimum the county administrator's proposed budget. However, we feel that there are perhaps mandated positions or other things that we recommend the county Board of Supervisors work with the school board during their budget process to lessen that gap. It's not negating what Don is saying, but it's a broad way and context that we can say, at a minimum, this is what we're looking at, but we encourage you to try to minimize that gap, is what I'm trying to
I guess, will they already be doing that?
Well, you would hope, but I mean, but we're reaffirming that we realize there's some things that need to be addressed.
Go ahead, Catherine.
It's up to the school board to decide how they want to spend their funds. I mean, if they want to refurbish a bus and, put $100,000 into that and load it up with supplies and drive it around, that was their priority. And I think that the school board is well aware of the mandated positions. It's not up to the Board of Supervisors. I believe the sentiment that Dr. Trampy said is evergreen and the 30 positions. Of course, the school board's going to do which ones are mandated first. I mean, that's what he's going to propose, not saying that's going to pass the Board of Supervisors. But I don't think that we don't have the right to task the board. They're going to have a joint meeting that night. I mean, so I think you better just leave it that at a minimum that, I'm not for, they're going to be aware of what positions are mandated and which aren't. I mean, the school board's going to know that the best.
Anyone else? Any other comments on a general comment of making, any other statements on making a general comment within the brief? Or not?
I like what you had proposed, that at a minimum, we adopt the county administrator's budget. But with that caveat, at a minimum.
Anyone else? That's on slide 2. That's the slide we were talking about. Yeah, it's in the comments, in the notes.
I didn't see the notes either, Catherine.
Yeah, because I think the notes are, I wanted to make sure that you knew what I was going to be speaking about, I just thought that was important, not just to see the bullet points and not know what I would be actually speaking about, so.
So is everybody looking at that particular slide deck now? I'm okay with adding them for a minimum and as generalized as we can make it. Anybody else have any objections to
I'm
doing that?
fine with that as well.
That's what we don't have to vote on it. That's just something we'll add that in there. Is everybody good with slide 2?
But I would like to add something that Dawn suggested. Something like every effort should be made to be eligible for state matching funds, to be able to collect state matching funds. And I do believe what Mary says, I think I looked up that we're required to do like 55 million and we give 127. So we're more than enough to be able to pull down those funds, I believe.
Anyone else? Any objections to adding that comment? Okay. Mr. Bell, you good with that?
I'm fine with that.
Everybody good with slide 2? We're going to go ahead and move on to slide 3. Slide 3 covers the DSS Community Organization take it to work, continue to pursue sponsorship for Parks and Rec, and implementing all Bluebeam software training for the planning department. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was something that I put in here, and I put it in quotations because I was not sure how, if it could be done. It was just me kind of brainstorming when I was putting this together. And under the Parks and Rec talking point, speaking to continuing to pursue sponsorships by working more closely, I put in there with economic development. Again, I don't know how other people feel about that, but my thought behind that, and you blame it on it being a little late at night when I was putting this together, but my thought behind that, and I don't even know if it's something that could be done, but my thought behind that was I believe sponsorships are good. And I know the county Parks and Rec has struggled with that. And I know economic development, works with businesses wanting to relocate here, and once they do, and they work with, existing businesses to a certain degree. And so I was thinking, and just in my crazy way of thinking, that maybe there's opportunity for companies who have relocated and are working with economic development, and then maybe in an informal way it would have to be formalized, but I'm kind of double talking right now, forgive me. But to be able to, and again, that's why I put quotation marks around here, what does committee think, but in a way that businesses may be not even incentivized, but may want to contribute a sponsorship to Parks and Rec as a good faith effort, nothing more, of being a good business in the community and county. I'm not talking specifics. I'm not talking anything specifics, and not even, I haven't even really thought like what the impacts of that, because you don't want to, I'm quite sure we wouldn't, as the county, we wouldn't want to lose a company because we're asking them to support our Parks and Recreation Department. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. But maybe once a company has already signed a deal and said, hey, we're here, ain't no going back now. Hey, well, we always encourage our businesses to, if they want to contribute, to Parks and Rec. And the other thing about that, I was thinking, was because businesses, the people who are working for a business have their own passions as well. Eric, no, I love bass fish. You want me to do something with fishing all day, I'm there. So my point is, people who, CEOs, employees of businesses, they have children, they have their passions. So it's not out of the ordinary, or, to that far of a stretch to think that, well, a company relocating may want to provide a good faith effort and say, hey, yeah, I support. If my children play lacrosse, of course I want to give to Parks and Rec because, they have a lacrosse program. That's all I was saying. I just didn't know. I was looking for some feedback because I know I kind of threw that out there and we hadn't talked about it, and I didn't know what people felt.
I'm okay with that, but also when we talked about Parks and Rec, and I think maybe Eric and Amanda were going to go back and ask about a review of their fee structure, because those fees had not been increased in many years, and yet when I had met with them the year prior, they had talked about how the cost of football had really gone up because the equipment is so expensive. So I don't know if we want to put anything in the presentation about them just review their fees, but
I can't really speak to that right now because I don't remember that, and that's just on me.
Yeah, I remember a little bit on it. I know they want to keep the fees as low as possible, obviously, for the community. They definitely, I know we talked about the MOU with schools and all that, but that's another side note. But they really, you know, they want to get into sponsorship stuff. The sponsorship stuff was not working at all, really. Like they, you know, they put the banners out on the field. You see some of them, and it really hadn't taken off. Now I see Greg's bringing up about the economic development, getting in with them, and you know, new businesses coming in. I think that's great. You know, I'd never looked at kind of that avenue of it, and I think they were trying without raising those fees to get these sponsorships and stuff like that to help cover those. I know a lot of the travel and stuff has hurt some of that. I think we talked about that last time because a lot of the, you know, the kids coming up, they're going more to that instead of the Parks and Rec. So hopefully maybe we can work something out. I think that's great with the economic development because, you know, that wasn't brought up last time. And that possibly could be a way that we could kind of, you know, level out those fees where the fees can stay similar and they can get enough funds, you know,
Yeah,
for the equipment and everything.
And again, I don't know if there's legal ramifications for that. I don't think so. And I haven't worded it, you know, I haven't, you know, in my mind worked it out or thought about it. And I don't know, Mary, if you know if, off the top of your head, if there's any policies that preclude or would preclude us from saying something like that. That's provided the committee even thinks something like that. I don't want us to catch a whole lot of fire from the board about something that, like, we obviously should have known. Like, why are you even remotely bringing that up?
Now, I don't know of any specific policy that says you can't. I don't think there's anything wrong with suggesting it. And Kevin and Tom, the Economic Development Director and the Parks and Rec Director, I'm sure would work together to do what they could possibly that was legal to be done. I know sponsorships of something that's been talked about for years, and we get some, and I mean, sometimes you have good success with it, sometimes you don't. So I will say to your question, Catherine, they look at the fees every once in a while. I can't remember the last time, it's been a couple of years, but we actually looked at that issue. Football is the most expensive sport because it has the equipment. What they do is have a standard fee that goes across all, so there are some sports that, like soccer, is maybe not as expensive as football because there's not so much equipment, but the combination is an averaged fee. Years ago, we actually talked about trying to get each sport at the cost. We actually did an ad and everything to have it done, and it just, in the end, they decided they weren't going to do that they wanted to keep it at, to Samuel's point, and whoever brought up the travel and the club sports, they have impacted Parks and Rec a lot. It's a different group of people in the Parks and Rec sports, and there are lots of children whose families enjoy having them participate something locally like this, so they're trying to keep it at a reasonable fee and not have something be so expensive that someone can't afford it. And I think that's what's happened in some other localities is some of those sports that are, when they're priced out that way, they become too expensive to play. So that's, and we have actually looked at that and actually advertised it, and actually we're planning to do that, and it didn't fly. That's been in the last 5 or 6 years that happened, so.
The other thing, I'm sorry, Mary, yes, just the last paragraph regarding reviewing the planning department, I put in parentheses on here again, because I didn't know how the committee felt, but the cost of the software, because I think it was fairly of the Bluebeam software for the planning.
Yeah, the software had already been purchased, and it was supposed to be uploaded or brought on board later with the implementation of a bigger piece of the system. The way I understand it is when whoever was meeting with planning department, they had thought that there were some people in their staff who were familiar enough with the software to go ahead and load it, and they would teach everybody. And it was soon after they got it that they realized we need more formalized training and we need more consistency across the training. So that has occurred. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Don't quote me on that, but it's been in the last couple weeks because they had the training in our building, and I talked to some of them afterwards, and they were very excited about it. So I think that whole issue has worked itself out. They got it a little bit sooner. They got formalized training, and I think they're on very happy with it.
And that
So.
training came out of their own individual budget.
It was either them or IT. I can't remember which one actually costed it. When it's software, sometimes IT is the one that has it in their side, so it's one of those two. But there was no additional money,
Okay.
no budget added that I'm aware of, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions on slide 3 from anybody? Concerns on the comments that's going to be made?
And then we have additional recommendations, CBRC recommendations. The broadcasting of the CBRC meetings, and I know that was some,
Sorry, we still have the
the
county
county-
administration,
we do
which
have that.
Catherine had submitted a slide for that, so
we do have that, I'm sorry.
they can't pull it up. No.
No, that's fine, I can,
She emailed it out. She did email it out, but you go ahead, keep. No,
I can look at it on my phone.
It's only a couple lines. He can read it out, actually. Sorry.
So fiscal year 2019 county administrator's budget, slight increase in compensation line item due to COLA and evergreen adjustments, small operating budget to cover administrative cost. Efficiencies include using a pool vehicle shared between one deputy county administrator, PIO, and other employees, which is fine. I guess my question would be, from there, were there any recommendations? And if there weren't, there weren't.
No, there were no recommendations. I mean, the employment, the salaries and compensation was within the COLA and the Evergreen. Their operating budget is less than $45,000 a year. And, so I think they do a whole lot on what they've got. I had no recommendations. Did you, Scott? I thought they was. Yeah, we had, because one deputy county administrator was switched from being charged off to utilities to county administrator, that was what the difference was. So, I mean, it was all right there.
Okay.
No suggestions I don't think they do a great job on what they've got.
So, additional CBRC recommendations, broadcasting of the CBRC meetings, and this is something that if we can't get the language right, I'm going to pull it out because, and I've had conversations with Mary and even with some other people in my family, and I think we're all aware of this, that when the citizens are used to a level of service, it's hard to back away from that. It just is. And I think, so if we can't get the language, and if you read what I wrote, CBRC, CBRC believes the added level of transparency through its meetings being televised and being in a more formalized setting has helped the committee stay on task and be more efficient. However, the CBRC's televised meetings do come at a cost to the county taxpayers, and the committee is cognizant of this fact. Again, the committee believes in transparency and wants to continue to ensure everything we do is open to the citizens, but as good stewards, we want to be mindful of any cost of our committee, our committee is creating. And I'm just saying that it's a consideration, that it's up to the board to make that decision. We're not advocating for it, but we recognize that it is a cost. And so if people are uncomfortable with that, that's fine. We can take that out, but I want to make sure we get the language right on it, because it can come across to citizens that we're not. Okay.
It takes the onus off of us.
Yeah, I definitely
It
second
takes the
that.
onus
It
off of
sounded
us and
great.
put it on them. That's where I wanted it, on them. Yeah.
All right, so we can keep that cataloging findings of reviews. This is where we are just kind of mentioning recommendation that Supervisor Yakubowski had made. And the thing I like about this is that I think under future recommendations, that we'll continue to do that, and that we've done that, and we're in the process. And I'm hoping this summer that we'll have cataloged these recent departments that we've spent the past year for. And Dawn, and I do want to mention that Dawn has created, let me add that in here, because you created the template. That we'll be using. But I think that kind of springboards us into two things for future plans: public safety compensation plan, and I think and you can. I'm not going to necessarily read what I wrote. I mean, if you all want me to, I will. But I think it gives us the opportunity, and I think we will. And again, it also speaks to it in the county administrator's budget message, where he speaks to things having come, to light as it relates to compensation. And so I think it gives us an opportunity to look at. I know the county is doing a deeper dive in that and pulling data and looking at numbers, and I think, and Tim, thank you for this, and you too, because I think you brought it up, Catherine, initially, the compensation thing. So two things. One, just as an FYI, this does not necessarily sit in my wheelhouse. So if they have deep questions about this, Catherine, I may call on you, if you're okay with that one.
I mean, that's fine. I think that, and we could check it again. I think that we collectively, not trying to speak for anyone, that we felt like this is something that should be implemented when feasible. Again, we don't have those extra dollars sitting there, but I do think we should at least tell them how we feel. When you've got 16 to 18 firefighters out of 200 and some, those jobs sitting empty, or the same with the deputies. That's a big, to me, that's a big threat to every citizen in this county. So I do think that's something that they do need to look at as soon as possible, whether it's the feeling of the board to wait till they can collectively give it to every department on the government side. Not every department on the government side is a hard to staff or hard to maintain job title. But certainly, I'm sure there are not that many openings in any other departments.
So
I know that public safety is eating up a lot of our extra dollars, partially because we put an SRO in every school. That costs money. I mean, they've had a lot of new positions, but we have open new fire stations.
Well, one of the things that, and I'm not going to take that deep of a dive into.
No, but I think everybody here said, I was shocked that they weren't giving credit for prior years.
Yeah,
so to me, it seemed like an idiotic thing not to do.
So what I have in here is that we want to take a deeper review and discussion of the plan once additional information and data is available to determine if and how such a plan as this could be implemented across all county departments, including the school system, because I think when we're talking compensation and we're having a deep conversation about this on the first slide from Dawn, who feels passionate, and rightfully so, about teachers' pay, that educators' pay. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Thank you. I stand corrected. Educators' pay, that if this is a plan that in some form or fashion can address pay on the county side and provide some relief, that it's something that has to be looked at a minimum on the school side. So I kind of addressed that it's something, and I think that I'm hoping that kind of ties in.
But they have no authority over the schools. The only thing they have authority over is the amount of money they give them.
Yeah, well, that's.
I mean, so they can't, that's up to the school board, and time again, Mr. Skinner has asked, why aren't you giving the steps? And Mrs. Gaines says, because a percentage is more advantageous to the employee. I mean, I say a step plus a percentage, but then again, I'm an educator.
Well, I'm gonna leave that.
But I don't think we can't mandate to the schools.
No, I'm not mandating to the schools in this. I think what I'm saying is if and how such a plan as this could be implemented across all county departments, and maybe I can change the language to not.
Hold up fire, public safety?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying take lessons learned and see how it applies holistically. That's what I'm saying. You know, you have information and you apply it to patient A, but you got patient B, C's, and D's. Oh, okay, let's take lessons learned and see if there's anything applicable. That's what I'm saying across the board. I think that is something that, and even, I just think that's something that probably would happen. You know, I think people would be inquisitive enough that if something's working well somewhere else, it almost makes sense to say, hey, let's look at how that could possibly work over here. Okay, it can't work, then it can't work. That's fine. But all I'm saying is looking at lessons learned, looking at information, no different than with the Evergreen study, when it was, if you go back to the county administrator's budget message, when he talks about the county took that as an undertaking and included the school systems. I'm saying the same thing. If you're gonna look at something, look at it from a holistic point of view and perspective. That's all I'm saying. But I think that ties in to the other future plan, which is reviewing and cataloging the school departments. So I think it gives us as a committee an opportunity as I think in this future fiscal year, spend more, because we haven't cataloged, the school systems with that. So I think to create a baseline, I think I'm hoping it'll be some natural synergy and that we can kind of use for that. That's pretty much all I have.
Well, we did, if you remember when we all came back and when we all started up, we did the sheriff's department first. That was the first department we did, if you'll recall. And I'm not sure who the second department was, but we didn't do schools. I don't think we're ready for schools, and I don't think schools is going to be ready for us because they're going to be busy trying to get their budget done, and the finance department is going to be very, very busy. So I say let's pick something else and maybe not go directly to schools, because it takes a long time to do schools. It's a big pot of money. I mean, it's a big department. But we did sheriff before we did schools, so I would say maybe they will be up next. We have not looked at utilities. I don't know anything about utilities.
They're self-funded, I know that.
So,
Yeah, but not all the utilities self-funded. Utilities are a big
I
department.
mean, I don't have county water or sewer, so I don't know. I mean,
Coming to your house to wash my car.
okay, that's fine, it's well water, but I don't know, does anyone here know anything about utilities that could go in and look at that?
I only know that I pay my bill to them every month.
I'm actually in one part of the utilities, the solid waste side, public works. I'm not in the water side of things where, stuff is self-sufficient. And I know they have used to be general services, but they're utilities as well. And they're not self-sufficient. So it's a lot of different little branches in utilities as it goes around. So, I could look into some of it. It might be better to get a perspective from maybe somebody else that's not in there too, or we could do.
Well, I think
I
think what we've always done the past years have, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but what we've always done is have two people review. And so if you have a person with knowledge, again, let's use the brain power on this committee to its benefit. So we can, utilities. But the other thing too is at the end of this, I'm going to ask the board if they have any special projects that they would like us to look at. So that may, he said the schools. Well, then, okay.
I want to add, because I know we say schools is huge, and being that it is, we can break it up. I mean, like you said, into the different sections of, and that way we don't take up everybody's time. But I think we'll be able to drill down into some of this, because when I was looking at 400 page, good Lord. But when you begin to look at the different sections and the different teachers, the different way of how the cost gets broke down, man, as up to midnight, it was driving me crazy. So I think if we can break it up, and as long as the the school board or superintendent don't mind us beginning to look at it that way, I think we can give a better report too if we were able to do that and understand where some of the FTEs or some of the benefits and insurance things that they're looking at. I think that would help us understand it a little bit more. Because even in the budget, it's still high level. It doesn't go, peel the onion back. So I wouldn't push the school out, because we know we're always got to look at the school. Any bit that we can get, it'll be a good thing. Won't even look till next year time.
So Karen had written a statement regarding essentially slide 2. And so I'm going to read it. You mind if I read it? Okay. So I'm going to read it, and we can, kind of wrap this up, based on this. So, and this is regards to the discussion that we were having earlier, about the school system. So, we, the CBRC, agree with the county administrator's budget at a minimum. We also recognize that the school board has many mandated positions that need to be funded. It is our hope that the school board and board of supervisors work together to try to bridge the gap and collect state matching funds when possible. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, the matching funds aren't for the mandated positions. The matching funds are sitting up there for that raise.
No, also the,
Okay, I'll check that, because I may be wrong on that. But, yeah, they need to,
Yes, I don't want to just build it.
could be the other meeting, right?
Let's close this thing.
So with that said, so come I tell you, I really enjoy being on this board. I just pray and hope I don't have to see you around this time next year. That's a positive if I didn't realize that. But anyway, for those of you that was wondering what I'm talking about.
I got you.
But I do. I really enjoy this. Been doing it for several years. This is great, and I'm learning more every year. But for the 12th, so I'm assuming that you and I have to sit up there.
You and I, what I would like to do is, we all have full-time jobs.
It's going to be a round thing, so we could all sit up there if you want.
That's fine with me.
I mean, they're going to have a joint session with the school board. So they generally set it up, tables like that, so we could, if we come, others could sit up there.
Yeah, so I'm fine with that. But
Caveat.
say that again.
I was going to have a caveat to that.
Okay, he has a caveat. But what I'm saying before you get to your caveat is that I am going to incorporate the changes and send out a draft. I was saying I know we all have jobs. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry.
Jen reminds me of that all the time.
Yeah, I'm a little envious. But one day, Lord willing, the creek don't rise. You made me forget what I was saying, Catherine. I'm gonna try to get the updated presentation to everyone no later than Thursday. I know Mary, the county administrator Mr. Taylor would like to have it by Friday or before. No later than Friday. So, Okay.
One question, Greg.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would like us to make a statement about supporting the public safety, implementation of the public safety compensation proposal as soon as feasible. So feasible means, you know, they end up having money to do it half year. I mean, that would be about 1.5 million or 1 penny on the real estate tax if they, so
Enough about it yet.
it is throwing good, it is foolish for us to pay $75,000 to train someone off the street to be a deputy.
Yeah, for
When
me,
if we offered a little more money for their experience, we would save money in the long run. Or the amount of money that's going into training the fire and rescue personnel. And it's not just the money. Every citizen is at risk if we don't have good qualified people in those positions. So I would like a statement on that.
I don't necessarily feel comfortable giving that statement, and it's not that I disagree with you about what you said. It's that I want to respect the process. I want to learn a little bit more about it. And it's not, I agree with everything that you said. The training, when Major Wells and Chief Cullen were here, and they were talking about the well, not the recidivism, but the turnover that they had and losing people. I agree 100% with you about that. But I want to, it's like with, I think that would be a minority report.
Not if a majority of the board agrees.
Okay. So if you would like to make a
So I would
motion?
like to make a motion that in our presentation, that we include a statement that we support the implementation of the public safety compensation proposal as soon as feasible.
I second.
Well, you- go ahead.
All in favor? Okay, we got. He does. 1, 2.
I would have to say, I'm gonna say nay because I don't know enough about it, so I'm not, yeah, because I'm not good on last minute stuff, so. Not that I disagree, it's just I don't know enough.
Tim.
I'm abstaining.
So we have. So we have, yes. I said no. Because
Yeah, I think just, you know, stating a statement as Catherine did, I think, you know, just bring it to their attention that we are aware of this and, you know, this is a concern. And I know that you know it's a concern, but we support it and we want, you know, to maybe move forward and try to figure out, you know, what we can do because it definitely is an issue. I mean, obviously, I
No,
wasn't here last week. I didn't get to see the presentation. I apologize for that. But it definitely is.
Just want to make one comment. I mean, you saw the presentation, and it was what they have costed out. We have been challenged with reviewing those costs. So, and we are just starting to do that, and we have lots of questions. So, I don't know what the cost will actually be. I don't know if we will necessarily, we being finance and HR, are meeting with them to review it. And I couldn't even begin to tell you even how I think it's going to turn out because it is that new and we had that many questions.
And that's.
So
and-
I'll just leave it at that as far as,
And that was my only point is that, you know, I support it in theory of it being the right thing. But, you know, I guess, Catherine, I guess my point is if it comes back and it's $1.2 billion, are you still going to support that? Is it still putting your stamp on it. And the answer to that question for you may be
Is $1.2 billion feasible? No, we don't even get that much
No,
money.
I
But
guess-
there is the thing, as soon as feasible. That would be determined by the finance staff and the county administrator and the board of supervisors.
I understand what I truly get what you're trying to say.
That's why I
Catherine,
say
but
as soon as feasible.
Yeah, but feasible is different to everybody.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
fine.
And so that, by saying that statement, I mean, you certainly, I mean, if you're saying that I think what I'm hearing you say is that you heard what the sheriff and the fire said. You are concerned about their turnover. You are concerned about the cost of training relative to that, and you would like to see something done to reduce the turnover. That's, I mean, you all said that. It was public at that meeting. Though this particular plan, until we get our hands on it and really figure out what it means, I don't know if you can take a stand on it because it's not complete. And there are some pieces missing. They talked about not just doing, our board said not just public safety, but also for general government. Public safety is only half of the population of employees, so if you double that, assuming that's, and I'm concerned that that's not enough. I think it actually may be more expensive on the other side after looking at what they're doing in this plan. You're talking almost $6 million, if their numbers are right on their side. That's just, from what I understand, that's just salaries. Every one of those public safety positions has overtime tied to it, so every piece of overtime we pay out will be more costly. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying we have got to have more time to look at it because it's a huge undertaking and it's going to take a while. But I think what you're saying, Catherine, is you recognize there's a problem and you would like to see something done to reduce the turnover and give us a chance to get through it, which will be a while. It's not going to be ready in time for fiscal year 20. We're not going to have the information at that point. That's my only comment. So
But it might end up being a top priority for 21.
absolutely, it could be.
So-
There's no doubt. Absolutely, I think everyone agrees.
I mean, it is a problem.
There is. They certainly presented an issue, the training issue. I actually had some questions about. For years, we've been asking about some of those training costs. I mean, a firefighter comes in and goes to a complete school when he gets here. I don't care where he came from. That's the way the firefighter works, as far as I know, right? And so that we have a lot of questions about the cost of that training outside of that plan that was presented. So, Taylor?
Well, and wary of taking your conversation in unintended directions, I want to tie back to the chair's point about the priority for special projects for next year and to wonder at the possibility of this board's interest in a deeper dive into the compensation philosophy that comes into play, both from the standpoint of the market analysis and Evergreen, and remember that the county's compensation philosophy that's part of our human resources policies adopted by the board calls for continuing relook at the market for salaries every 3 to 5 years. And when we did Evergreen, we bought the tool with which to relook at the market on a selective basis, and it'll be time in 21 on the county side after the 3rd year of implementation of this Evergreen to do the next cycle of rechecking and revalidating where we are relative to market. Now, to my cognizance of the public safety compensation recommendations that are about 4%, I think it is, longevity steps over time, that is, longevity is presented in terms of total longevity working in the department. So in other words, the same steps would apply to a lieutenant who has been a lieutenant for half a dozen years versus a 6-year employee who was promoted to lieutenant last year, and they would both be treated the same way, as I understand the proposal is put forward. And it seems to me from the reading that I've done on compensation philosophy, which we need to advance in as an organization, there is and Evergreen spoke to this. There is time and service longevity. How many years have you been a county employee? There is time and grade longevity. How many years have you been a lieutenant or a ditch digger in utilities or whatever your position is? Those both matter. The Board of Supervisors also has talked for years about performance-based compensation. And so should there be a difference in the advancement of someone who is consistently an exemplary employee versus consistently an acceptable but not stellar employee? And how can different factors perhaps apply? Because we can, and there are PhD theses, there are books written about these different factors and how they co-vary and how you can put them to consideration of them together to form a coherent, cohesive compensation philosophy that then addresses each of these elements that are thought to be, or according to your organizational values, may be considered compensable. So I think is a broader and deeper question. As Mary indicated, there's, I think, considerable more work to do in analyzing the proposal from public safety. There's no denial of an issue with compensation. We've seen that for a couple of years. In fact, the highest turnover has been in the jail, and I've been working with the jail board to address compensation there. So we continue to fight this battle, and it may be something that the CBRC might get involved with or be brought involved with by the board to help form a more coherent and comprehensive compensation philosophy and provide a prescription for how we might go forward. Just a thought.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That brought some additional insight for me. Yes, Tim?
I have some just
Mhm.
got on the motion and all that. I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor. So I had it documented right in our notes. Catherine Dennis wanted a motion for statement of support.
Get your mic.
Don Epper seconded it. Sean Davis voted no. I abstained. Mr. Bell voted no. Mr. Thompson voted yes. Ms. Dennis voted yes. Mr. Johnson voted yes. And Mr. Napper voted yes. I mean, Mrs. Napper. I'm sorry.
So what is that?
So that was four yes, 2 no, 1 abstention. Then Mary brought up that you all have been tasked to look into this further, and then questions whether a stand can be taken at this point. That's where I got with the motion. So the motion passed. I think I got it all correct,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
You should put in there a compensation, because it may not be exactly what Chief Cullinan or Carter Wells.
A public safety compensation.
Right, or what Major Wells suggested, because as they said, they're looking at things. But to me, that's where not to be a cliche, but where the fires are on the county side. We got the fires with the teachers and the paras, most of all, and I guess getting really school social workers is a really hard thing to do too, because they
need
can make
to-
so much more in private practice, are the fires on the school side. So,
Do we need to, and I want to wrap this up.
well, that doesn't mean they have to do it.
Yeah. Do we need to have another vote on that since the language was changed? I don't know if it changed the context of.
I have it as statement of support on public safety compensation plan.
Well, yes, I would like to, given Mary and Mr. Taylor's, additional information, I think it's prudent that maybe the committee has a revote. And again, it has nothing to do for me personally.
I would second that. I can second that. Can I? Motion it.
You can.
Right.
Yeah, I'll definitely make a motion to have another vote. Reconsider vote, yeah, because
I'll second.
Don seconds. And so
yeah, with some of the, statement that Mary had and Mr. Taylor had, I mean, it's obvious, it's going, and maybe, it could be time for, maybe next year to bring it back up, depending on what stage it could be in, or what kind of, things are going on.
so in
So I need the verbiage for what we're
so
voting on.
yeah, that's what I was trying to get my. If you can think of it faster than me, Sean.
And you can say in lieu of additional information added to the motion, said person has decided to put a motion on the floor to draw back comment to be placed into the speech.
You want to revote?
No.
I want a revote on the, on the original. Reconsider. Yes.
The thing is, it's not that it's a bad comment, it's just giving them time to look into the system. What we're
Yeah.
telling somebody to hurry up on something that they haven't even begun to do, they already know it's gonna take 3 years.
Yeah.
As soon as
Yeah.
it's scheduled, they already told you
And-
it's gonna be forever. So to throw that out, it's like throwing a little pie. And that's why I keep bringing that out. We gotta be careful, because in a previous time we would do that, we would make those kind of comments and it would come back in the paper the next day. And so we gotta,
Yeah, and
it's not you, it's all of us, and it's just the point of how, that's not the motion to bring for that we already know it's gonna take a long time. If I'm digging a hole and I got a spoon, you telling me to hurry up, it's not gonna make me hurry up. I'm gonna take the spoon and do it. Now, if I started digging and I got a whole year, come next year, then we can come forward and say, we know that you guys have been working on this study for X amount of time. That kind of.
well,
on something that hasn't happened.
yeah.
I stand by my support for it's not a compensation study, and maybe that'll be through Evergreen. We can't tell them to do it. But I stand by my support for the compensation plan that was presented by Major Wells and Chief Cullinan. So I'm still going to vote yes.
Got a motion on the floor that hasn't been
Yeah, maybe
voted on,
some-
but the seconding has been rescinded. Technically not a motion yet, so we need to clear his off.
You going to second?
I can't second it, because I was already against it. Has to be,
Second at this point.
Worded so that all we're saying is we support the need.
Well, I think I addressed that. I thought I had addressed that in the last bullet point, in saying that in saying that, where is it at? The CBRC had the opportunity to hear from Major Wells and Chief Culligan regarding the public safety compensation plan. Based on their joint presentation to the committee, the CBRC would like to have a deeper review and discussion of the plan once additional information and data is available to determine if and how a plan such as this could be implemented across all county departments, including school systems. What I'm saying is, let's get more information and find out more. because it's great at face value, and I think we all agree that something with compensation needs to happen, but we don't have enough information right now, I feel like, to to endorse something that we know nothing about at this point. Not enough. Not that we don't know anything about. We don't know enough about it to, as a committee, endorse it.
Your statement is to me, I interpret your statement, what I'm hearing you say, is it's dependent upon a step system across all county departments and the step system in the schools.
No, what I'm saying is,
But that's not how it's coming across.
what I'm saying is,
We can't dictate to the schools. The schools, those school board members know how to run a school.
and we can reword that, but that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, at a minimum, let's have more information before we endorse anything and see how it can be applied, if it can be applied across a spectrum. To me, that's just the prudent way to go about looking at something that I am not a subject matter expert in most things outside of the thing that I do for a living. So information is key and king for me in order for me to make a decision about something. And right now, I agree that the presentation was a great presentation and it opened my eyes to a lot of things I did not know. That still it still hasn't put it in a place where I know everything that I probably should know about that, or maybe even after information and data is collected, we'll still know. I still may be lost in the dark looking at everybody like they crazy.
Greg?
Yes,
What if we
ma'am.
said something like, we understand there are some issues with the recruitment and salary scales across the entire county and are looking forward to getting more information on this and would like to, something like that. So it shows that we're, well, it shows that we're sympathetic and we're, we've got their backs,
I can agree to that.
but we still need more information.
Okay, I heard.
Somebody help me word it better.
Yes, I'm trying to get the wording.
Well, we can work on that.
I don't even.
'Cause I get what both.
I was still
get what
processing
everybody's
what I
trying
had
to
in my
say.
head, dog.
I
I
just
just-
want to make sure, like I said, we're not going, hey, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to hurry up and do it. So I understand what they're saying.
The presentation.
It's just how.
Someone who voted on the prevailing side wants to make a motion. Or you guys can do a minority
Not worth a minority report. Jeez.
don't think it's.
You'll be sitting up there. So.
Could we just make a motion to reword it where we're still showing that we,
Yes, you can.
okay,
Make a motion, he can second.
okay, I make a motion that we reword what we were gonna put in
Yeah,
it.
and I second that.
And to show
Yeah. Or first.
that, give me a second. Look, it's Monday. No, it's recruiting, retention, okay. So the CBRC acknowledges that, somebody write it down besides me, because I'm just gonna get it out, but I'm not gonna get it down. Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're going to. You're just adding on to it.
No, I'm rewording it.
Excuse me, Robert's Rules of Order. If you want to reword this motion, you were supposed to make a friendly motion.
Friendly
before-
amendment, yes.
A friendly amendment before we voted on this motion. We have officially voted on this motion, and it has passed. You're not going to back reword it unless somebody wants to bring it back up like you originally made your statement for reconsideration, and it has to be from one or four of us. But to reword what we've got is not the way to do it. That should have been done in a friendly amendment. But your course of action earlier, when he made the motion, was correct. If you want to change anything, you have to go it that way.
That big of a deal. Just say it and just deal with the backlash that's going to come from. Just
I'm I'm trying to show that we support them, but without tying anybody's hands.
So, go ahead.
Yeah.
So what are you saying again, Catherine? Just, what? No, your actual statement.
Statement you want him to say.
Statement of support on public safety compensation plan as soon
So you want me to write a statement of,
as on public safety compensation. Talking so fast, I
If it's not feasible, it never gets done.
as soon as feasible?
That's what I said.
Statement of support on public
Not to
safety.
say as soon as possible. Makes it much
Proposed public
broader.
safety compensation plan.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I support it when it's feasible to implement that.
Yeah, but your statement you just read said you support the compensation, the public safety compensation plan when feasible. So you're saying you support exactly what the sheriff and the,
No, I did not say that.
okay, that's what I
So-
hear when you say that. So be careful.
Okay.
That's what I hear when that, what Bryner just read back, what Tim just read back said, we support the compensation, public safety compensation plan when feasible, right? Isn't that? the
Not
terms?
the A.
A,
A.
Okay.
Public
'cause
safety
that's a big difference
compensation.
in the words.
And
It's
she may-
A.
She may have said.
And I
A,
told
but
you
I
A
don't
several
remember.
times.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's fine, just make sure, because when he read that back, I
Right.
thought, hold on, what are we saying, so.
A.
So.
Right.
Statement of support on A.
A.
Proposed public safety compensation plan as soon as feasible.
Not
Rectifies the
on.
whole debate that we've had.
Yeah, I don't know,
I
we
just
just,
couldn't keep up with it. 'Cause we were-
It may be that plan, it may be, once the finance and HR people, not necessarily what they presented.
okay, that's the only clarification.
Right.
When you read it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
No, you're fine. I heard you down there. You're fine. No, that at the end of the day, that's what this committee is about. At the end of the day, it's about us not always agreeing on things, but finding a way. No. It's at the end of the day, it's about this committee finding a way when we don't agree on things to work it out, and that's probably what I'm most proud of. So we're fine. We're good. No, we're good. That's what this is about. That's what it should be about.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes,
I
sir.
may, just allay some fear here. The word feasible may have a lot of meaning, and it could be a fact that never takes place. It means to implement within a reasonable, if it's reasonable. And if it turns out it's not reasonable, then it's not feasible. I mean, it could go next year or the year after. It's just we recognize the fact that there is a need for such a thing, and we recommend that they consider it when they can.
And yeah, I appreciate it. And just as a sidebar note, I appreciate the clarification on the Robert rules. You were a subject matter expert on that. You
I'm
as
not
well,
an expert
Catherine.
on
So,
that.
so thank you.
I've had to live under them for a while.
But if there are, yeah, I got it. Yes, ma'am. We're good. This is what this is about, and that's what makes this committee good.
Can I just bring up one thing before you close it out?
No.
It's very quick. Just a friendly reminder
Yes.
by our bylaws that we don't have to do it tonight, but we are now nearing where we have to reseat our new board.
I am, yes.
And my just suggestion for that, just food for thought to think about before our next meeting, because of the tenure that these offices run, my suggestion is that we look at going with people that their board members are not up for election this fall. That way, if they don't get reelected, we're not having to change officers right before the next budget process.
Can you put that in the minutes so we
Yeah,
can?
so that's just my suggestion. We don't have to make that decision now, but food for thought, so we're not changing secretaries, chairs, and vice chairs potentially right before we get into budget
Okay.
season next year, so.
Yes.
Also, a question that I wanted to ask, do we want this to count as our March meeting and not meet the third Monday of March? I mean, pretty much we can't do anything until after the tax rate is set. Will that be before our April meeting? Okay.
So do we want to make a motion to, you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that tonight's meeting count as our March meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
'Cause we just love being together. One caveat before, about the meeting on the 12th, you guys just know, when we're up there, please keep, if you're gonna make a comment, you can make a comment, but, make your comment in direction of the chairs, and just be mindful of the chair, so if he winks or something like that, because you know. Right, and I just want to make sure that the comments are short, so we don't, because you know it can get long-winded, those of you that's been in the midst of that. So let's help us help ourselves, because I don't want to be in the paper if we don't need to be. Bless us all. I know we'll do good. I like the brief, I like the comments, I like, like I said, that's what a board's all about. We don't supposed to agree on everything. We got to be able to bend it and mold it so it looks right, and this shows that we're doing that, so kudos to the team, so thanks. I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Opposed?